The median American household makes about $75,000 a year. That's more than 90% of humans who have ever lived. More than most people in Europe. More than most people in developed Asia. More, adjusted for inflation, than Americans made 30 years ago. And yet 63% of Americans say they're living paycheck to paycheck. Not poor Americans. Not minimum wage workers. The median. The middle. The people who, on paper, should be fine. Something is fundamentally broken. And it's not what you think. Let's start with a number that doesn't make sense. 40% of Americans can't cover a $400 emergency without borrowing money or selling something. $400. That's not a medical emergency. That's not a car transmission. That's a water heater repair. A parking ticket and a flat tire in the same week. The kind of thing that isn't even interesting enough to complain about. And nearly half the country would have to go into debt to handle it. Now here's where it gets strange. These aren't all people making $30,000 a year. A lot of them make $60,000, $70,000, $80,000. They have jobs. They pay their bills. They do everything they're supposed to do. And they're still one broken dishwasher away from a credit card balance. Set up. So what happened? The easy answer is people spend too much. And sure, some people do. But that's not the full story. Because if you look at what the average American household spends money on, it's not yachts and bottle service. It's the same boring stuff it's always been. Housing. Transportation. Food. And it's the same boring stuff it's always been. Housing. Transportation. Food. Insurance. Childcare. The difference is how much those things cost now versus how much they used to cost. And this is where the numbers start to get uncomfortable. Let's start with housing. In 1985, the median home price in America was about $75,000. The median household income was about $23,000. So the median home cost roughly 3.3 times the median income. Today, the median home price is about $420,000. The median household income is about $75,000. That's a ratio of 5.6 to 1. Same country. Same houses. The math just changed. But wait. It's worse than that. Because those numbers assume you're buying with cash. Nobody buys with cash. In 1985, mortgage rates were around 10%. Sounds high. But remember, home prices were low. Your monthly payment on that $75,000 house at 10%? About $650. Today, mortgage rates are around 7%. Lower rate. But the house costs $420,000. Your monthly payment? About $2,800. So your monthly housing cost went from $650 to $2,800. Meanwhile, median household income went from $23,000 to $75,000. Let's do that math. In 1985, your mortgage payment was about 34% of your gross monthly income. Today, it's about 45%. And that's before property taxes and insurance, which have also exploded. But here's the thing that breaks people's brains. Boomers always say, I struggled too. My mortgage rate was 13%. And they're right. Rates were insane in the early 80s. But they're missing the point. A 13% rate on a $75,000 house is still cheaper than a 7% rate on a $420,000 house. The monthly payment is what matters. And the monthly payment has doubled as a percentage of income. But it gets worse. Because housing isn't the only thing that got more expensive relative to wages. In 1980, the average cost of a four-year public university was about $9,100. Total. For all 4 years. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $34,000 in today's dollars. Today, the average cost of a four-year public university is about $90,000. That's not adjusted for inflation. That's the actual number. So even after adjusting for inflation, college costs 3 times more than it did in 1980. Meanwhile, wages have barely moved. In 1980, the median starting salary for a college grad was about $16,000. Today, it's about $55,000. Sounds like a lot, right? Adjusted for inflation, that 1980 salary is about $60,000 in today's dollars. So starting salaries actually dropped by $5,000 in real terms. You're paying 3 times more for college and getting paid less when you graduate. Now let's talk about healthcare. In 1980, the average American spent about $500 a year on healthcare. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $1,900 today. The actual number today? $6,500 per person. And that's with insurance. So healthcare costs 3 times more than inflation would predict. But that's just the average. If you actually get sick, the numbers go completely sideways. A simple emergency room visit for something minor, stitches, an x-ray, maybe some pain meds, can easily hit $3,000. Even with insurance, you're paying $500 to $1,000 out of pocket. A hospital stay? $10,000. $20,000. $50,000. And insurance covers some of it. After your deductible. Which is probably $5,000. So let's add this up. Housing costs more. College costs more. Healthcare costs more. And wages didn't keep up. But here's the part that nobody talks about. These 3 things, housing, education, healthcare, aren't luxuries. They're the basic ingredients of a middle-class life. You need a place to live. You need a degree to get most decent jobs. You need healthcare or one accident bankrupts you. These aren't optional expenses. They're the cost of entry. And the cost of entry tripled while wages stayed flat. Now, someone always says, but people spend more on stuff than they used to. iPhones. Subscriptions. Eating out. Okay. Let's look at that. The average American spends about $350 a month on food outside the home. That includes coffee, lunch, dinner, everything. $350. Your rent went up by $1,500 compared to what your parents paid. Even if you never ate out, never bought coffee, never ordered delivery, you'd still be underwater. The subscriptions argument is even sillier. Netflix is $15. Spotify is $10. Even if you have 5 streaming services, that's maybe $60 a month. Your healthcare premium is $400. Blaming financial struggle on lattes and Netflix is like blaming the Titanic sinking on someone leaving a porthole open. So what do people do? They borrow. Total U.S. household debt is about $17 trillion. 17 trillion. That includes mortgages, credit cards, student loans, auto loans, everything. The average American household carries about $155,000 in debt. But here's the kicker. Most of that is good debt, right? Mortgages, student loans, investments in your future. Except that only works if those investments pay off. If your degree leads to a job that pays enough to cover the loan, great. If your house appreciates enough to cover the interest and build equity, great. But for millions of people, that's not happening. They're paying $600 a month in student loans for a degree that got them a job making $45,000 a year. They're paying $2,500 a month for a mortgage on a house that's underwater because they bought at the peak. The debt was supposed to be an investment. Instead, it's a trap. Now let's talk about inflation. Everyone knows prices are going up. You see it at the grocery store. You see it at the gas pump. But here's what's insane. The official inflation rate, the number the government reports, doesn't match what people actually experience. The CPI says inflation has been around 3 to 4% over the last few years. But housing, healthcare, and education, the three biggest expenses for most people, have been inflating at 6, 7, 8% or more. Why the disconnect? Because the CPI measures a basket of goods. And that basket includes things that are getting cheaper, like electronics and clothing. Your TV costs half what it did in 2010. Great. But your rent doubled. Your health insurance tripled. Your kids' college tuition quadrupled. The TV doesn't matter. Here's another thing that makes this hard to see. Household income has gone up over the last 40 years. In 1980, median household income was about $21,000. Today, it's $75,000. That's a 250% increase. Sounds great, right? Except that's not adjusted for inflation. Adjusted for inflation, that 1980 income is about $79,000 in today's dollars. So real household income actually dropped by $4,000. But wait, there's more. In 1980, about half of households had one income. One person working full-time. Today, nearly 2/3 of households have two incomes. Both people working full-time. So household income stayed flat, but households went from one worker to two. You're working twice as hard to make the same amount of money your parents made with one job. Now look at the gig economy. 36% of American workers have a side hustle. That's not because they love driving for Uber or selling stuff on Etsy. It's because their main job doesn't cover their expenses. So they work 40, 50, 60 hours a week at their real job, then drive people around on weekends. Deliver food at night. Sell things online. Not to get ahead. Just to break even. The system doesn't work anymore. So people patch it with duct tape and hustle. Here's where it gets dark. Financial stress isn't just about money. It changes your brain. When you're worried about paying rent, you make worse decisions. Not because you're dumb. Because your brain is in survival mode. Studies show that financial stress reduces cognitive function by about 13 IQ points. That's the equivalent of losing a full night's sleep. Except it doesn't go away when you rest. You're constantly calculating. Can I afford this? What happens if the car breaks down? What if I get sick? Every decision becomes a minefield. And the stress compounds. Financial stress leads to health problems. Health problems lead to medical bills. Medical bills lead to more financial stress. It's a loop. And millions of people are stuck in it, and then there's the shame. Because American culture says if you're struggling, it's your fault. You didn't work hard enough. You made bad choices. You should have budgeted better. So people don't talk about it. They smile. They post on Instagram. They pretend everything is fine. Meanwhile, they're drowning. And because everyone's pretending, everyone thinks they're the only one struggling. But they're not. 63% of people are living paycheck to paycheck. It's not an individual failure. It's a systemic collapse. So where did the money go? Because GDP is up. Productivity is up. Americans are producing more value than ever. But wages are flat. So where's the money? Corporate profits. In 1980, corporate profits were about 5% of GDP. Today, they're about 11%. Worker wages as a share of GDP dropped from 52% to 43%. So the pie got bigger. Workers just got a smaller slice. The money didn't disappear. It went to shareholders, executives, stock buybacks. Meanwhile, the people actually making the products and providing the services are living paycheck to paycheck, and here's the ironic part. The economy is supposed to be doing great. Unemployment is low. Stock market is high. GDP is up. By every official metric, things are fine. But those metrics don't measure whether people can afford rent, or healthcare, or childcare. They measure whether the economy is growing. And the economy can grow just fine while everyone in it struggles. Because growth doesn't mean shared prosperity. It just means the total number went up. The scariest part of all this? Most people don't even realize they're in a trap. They think they're just bad with money. They think everyone else is doing fine. They see their neighbors buying new cars, going on vacations, upgrading their houses. What they don't see is the credit card debt, the home equity loans, the financial stress behind the Instagram posts. Everyone's pretending. And the pretending makes it worse. Because if everyone's pretending to be fine, you feel like you're the only one failing. So you don't ask for help. You don't talk about it. You just suffer quietly. And the government? They know this is happening. But policy moves slowly. And the people who benefit from the current system have a lot more political power than the people who are drowning. So housing stays expensive. Healthcare stays expensive. Education stays expensive. And wages stay flat. Because every time someone proposes a solution, someone else says it would hurt the economy. Build more housing? That would lower home values. Can't have that. Make college cheaper? That would devalue degrees. Can't have that. Control healthcare costs? That would hurt insurance companies and hospitals. Can't have that. So nothing changes. And people keep struggling. Zoom out for a second. This isn't just about money. It's about what kind of society we want to be. Do we want a society where working full-time is enough to live with dignity? Or do we want a society where you need 2 jobs, a side hustle, and perfect financial discipline just to avoid disaster? Because right now, we've chosen the second one. Not explicitly. But through 1,000 small decisions and policy failures. Here's the thing nobody wants to say out loud. For most of American history, the deal was simple. Work hard. Play by the rules. You'll be okay. Not rich. Not famous. Just okay. You could buy a house. Raise kids. Retire with dignity. That deal is broken now. You can work hard. You can play by the rules. And you can still end up one emergency away from financial ruin. The question is, when do people stop believing in a system that doesn't work for them anymore? Because here's what keeps economists up at night. An economy only functions if people believe it's fair. Not perfect. Not equal. Just fair. If you work, you should be able to live. But millions of people are working and can't afford rent. Can't afford healthcare. Can't afford childcare. They're doing everything right and still losing. And at some point, they stop playing the game. They stop spending. Stop investing. Stop believing the future will be better than the past. And when that happens, the whole thing starts to fall apart. So why do most Americans struggle financially? It's not because they're lazy. It's not because they're bad with money. It's because the math doesn't work anymore. Housing got more expensive. Education got more expensive. Healthcare got more expensive. And wages didn't keep up. The game changed. But everyone's still playing by the old rules. And the people who already won are telling everyone else they're just not trying hard enough. The uncomfortable truth is this. Most Americans are struggling not in spite of doing everything right, but because they did everything right. They went to college like they were told. Got jobs like they were supposed to. Bought houses when they could afford them. And the system punished them for it. Because the system wasn't designed for them. It was designed for the people at the top. And until that changes, the struggle continues. If this hit different, subscribe. I make videos about the systems that shape our lives, even when we don't see them. And if you're struggling financially, drop a comment. You're not alone. And you're not the problem. See you in the next one.